But right now, for Winning Edge Investments, treat betting like a business. Make sure you gamble responsibly. If you have an issue, call 1-800-858-858. For Winning Edge Investments, good morning to Dean Evans.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you going?
Oh, I'm going all right, mate. I'm sick of talking about bad weather.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Some of the images are just incredible, aren't they? I saw an image yesterday of the Lismore McDonald's sign, which was nearly underwater, and it's 14 meters high. So it's just astonishing what the weather can do, and these 1 in 100 floods seem to keep happening every year.
Gary Portelli mentioned it earlier when we spoke to him that racing is our game. We love talking about it 24/7, but really in the big picture of what people are going through at the moment, it's pretty minute, isn't it? Some of the vision's just incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible, and yeah, it's always disappointing to lose meetings and have disrupted preps, especially around this time of year with such great racing. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people doing it really tough.
Well, we're going to concentrate in both places. We know that Sydney at Randwick is a heavy 10, so let's start with Flemington and the Australian Guineas. The build-up, as we know, has been enormous around multiple 3-year-olds in this race that go to it in red-hot form, Pinstripe being one of those. And then we get Hitotsu coming back and, well, the X Factor's Profondo, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just such an intriguing race. The key lead up to it usually is the CS Hayes. Like you said, Pinstripe won that, and Pesquero ran a good second, and Captivant a strong third. And that's always a very strong pointer to this race. But then we've got two horses that you named there, and Hitotsu and Profondo, who come into it first up. And I looked at the last 10 years results, and no horse has even tried to run in this race first up. So they're trying to break history, both of those horses, but they're obviously both top quality Group 1 horses, and so it just makes for a very, very intriguing race.
We've got to trust the trainers here, don't we? And even Robbie Dolan, who people can podcast the interview with Robbie from our earlier and first hour that many may not have heard. But Robbie has got confidence that Profondo can do this first up at 1,600. And it's the same with John Allen and Maren Eustace. They worked Hitotsu back on Monday, and it was immediate confidence that we can do this.
Yeah, I mean, Hitotsu is a really quality horse, and I've learned my lesson trying to bet against Karen Ma's stable when it comes to history. They won the Derby last prep third up off a mile run. It just hadn't been done before. It was an incredible training performance, and they're just one of those really only handful of stables that can defy history. And so it's very hard to put a rule through Hitotsu and say just because he's first up here that he can't win. He'll be fit and ready to go. And Profondo, again, he's had 3 starts.
We're having one of those. Yep, sorry. Keep going, Dean.
So he's had one. He won the spring champion by 2 lengths very impressively, and he's trialled really well twice. He was only sort of 3 lengths behind Wild Ruler, Forbidden Love, and Zaki in a Warwick Farm trial, and then he beat Royal Zell in a nice trial around the second quickest last 600 metres of the day at Warwick Farm on the 28th. So the horse is going well. He looks to be going well in his public appearances, and they're 2 good quality horses. But the question is, can they win Australian Guineas first up over a mile?
One thing that I should add into the subject here, Dean, is the forecast of rain in Melbourne on Saturday morning. They're saying anywhere between 20 and 30 mil could fall Saturday morning early and maybe finish by lunchtime. And we know Flemington's a good draining track, but it might just take the edge off that good track.
That's right. It'll take the edge off. Flemington is, it's the best track in Australia for mine by a very long way. And these days, what's so impressive about Flemington is it just never seems to get too firm or too wet. And we saw that over the Spring Carnival and other meetings where even when it rains, it just never seems to get much worse than soft. And when it's really dry, it still, can rate as a good 4. And we saw over the Spring Carnival horses like Colette and Very Elegant who were considered as sort of wet trackers still, running to their absolute peak. So, I think the track race is fairly regardless of the conditions. I think, there's still a bit of uncertainty who's going where. I think a horse like Coast Watch for me is one who's, really excels on a rain-affected track. And I think, if he goes to Randwick on the heavy, he'll be very, very well suited. But if he goes to Flemington, I think with that morning rain, I think he's going to be very, very well suited as well. And then a horse like Cop de Vent, who, was only beaten half a length in the Caulfield Guineas last prep. He ran really well for third last start in the CS Hayes. Ran plus 4.8 for his last 600 metres, the third quickest of the day. And for me, if it's a dry track, then Cap de Vent rates on top. But if it starts getting a bit wet, he's not quite as well as suited.
Okay, so I was just going to pose the question: do you look at the format of the CS Hayes, or you feel that these other two that are first up can beat the CS Hayes form?
For me, the CSA has produced the winner 7 of the last 10 years. And this is also an on-paces race. So, in the last sort of 9 years, the first 3 in settling have won 5, and settling worse than 8th has only produced 1 winner, which was Luna Fox at 300 to 1 last year. So if you've run in those sort of key lead-up race 2 weeks before and you're an on-pacer, you're a strong chance here. For me, I just feel that Hitotsu and Profondo are both too well found in the market. It's not that they're top quality horses, but I'm surprised to see Profondo favourite, if I'm totally honest. And although it's hard to deny, the Kieran Maher stable, it's still a big effort for Hitotsu to win first up, and he could be a superior stayer. So I'm sort of leaning more towards that CS Hayes form. I thought Cap de Vent was the best run coming out of it. He's got that proven Group 1 form, and I think if the track's dry, then I have him on top. But the one that there's a bit of uncertainty where he's running, but the one that I think would be suited if it rains is a horse like Coast Watch, who I think people forget he won the Ming Dynasty on a wet track. He then was only beaten a length and a half in the Golden Rose behind in the Congo and Animo. And I think after that, he trained off a bit for the Stan Fox and Bondi Stakes. But again, I think that's because those tracks were really rock hard. And I think if he finds a wet track at Flemington, then he's a horse that can really excel after a good first up win at Group 2 level 3 weeks ago at Caulfield.
Okay, so Cap de Vent, if the rain stays away, and if Coast Watch goes down there, if it's wet, then that's the one for you. And Chris Waller has told the stewards, as we speak live right now, that he's planning at this stage to maybe split the 3-year-olds. One could go to Melbourne and one could stay in Sydney. So there's a bit to play out maybe through today, because he has to obviously get one of them on a float tonight, you would feel. Anything else at Flemington you wanted to mention before we move on to the Randwick Guineas?
Look, we've got Zaki returning in the Blamey, and that'll be very good to watch. And I think Inspirational Girl's another horse in that race. It'll be good to keep a close eye on. She was obviously very impressive winning at Group 1 level in Melbourne, and now is with the Danny O'Brien stable. So that's a very interesting watch race. And I thought the English Sprint was another race that was of real interest. There's a horse called Shadow Devil, trained by Mark Newnham, and if you look at the replays of his 2 Gosford wins, they were really, really top quality wins. On his debut, he sort of sat 3 and 4 wide and won by 2.5 lengths, and then his second up run, he basically got stopped in his tracks about 3 times on that short Gosford straight, still managed to come from last and win. So he's a very, very high quality horse that I'm looking forward to seeing resume on Saturday. Yeah,
overpassed the favourite in the English Sprint at 2.30, but you're right. Shadow Devil, go and watch the replays there. $7 right now with Damien Oliver aboard. So Sydney, we know what we're going to get. I think the biggest issue that we've spoken about this morning is the flooding of streets and people needing to get there for work come Saturday. So let's hope this rain does ease like the forecast suggests tomorrow. So given the prospect of a heavy 9 or 10, what are you thinking in the Guineas?
Well, look, the winner of the Guineas has come out of the Hobartville Stakes every year for the last 10 years. So that's an easy way to sort of get started. What's very interesting about this race is the 3 times it's been run on really wet tracks. The winner came out of a VRC Derby or Oaks Run, and that for me is a very interesting pointer, because when you're running this mile, and most of them sort of run this race second up, and so when it gets to a heavy track, you obviously want those horses that can really run that strong mile on a very wet track. So Inference sort of won it at I think he opened sort of 20 to 1. He came into $9, coming off a spring champion run on a heavy. Machine won coming off a VRC Oaks run, and Shadow Hero also off a VRC Derby run. So that's just an interesting pointer. But unfortunately, Forgot You was scratched. And he was actually the one that probably stood out the most. The only other qualifier there is Raging Bull, who could be a good roughie for David Payne. Look, I think the obvious at the moment, you've got Animo there as even money favourite, won the Hobartville, nearly won the Cox Plate and the Caulfield Guineas winner, obviously rates well. The horse that I've spoken to you about previously and that I'm still very keen on is Converge. I think he's just a top quality horse. He's clearly been set for this and the Rosehill Guineas, and I think his JJ Atkins win was just so impressive, and he sort of settled off the speed in the Hobartville, but ran sort of plus 4.4 for the last 600, and that was the seventh quickest of the day. I think he's a very genuine challenger to Animo. And you've got Halal and Coast Watch there, who are both, horses that appreciate the wet tracks. And I think it's a very interesting race. And I think any of those sort of top four can win it. And for mine, given the bog heavy 10 conditions and there's always that uncertainty, even with a horse like Animo on whether he fully handles it. I think there's opportunity to bet around him with the likes of Converge, Halal, and Coast Watch.
Well, as it stands right now, Animo at Bet365, $1.95, Converge at $6, Halal $6.50, and we'll wait and see what happens with Coast Watch. It's currently 23 in the Randwick Guineas with Ranch Hand at 15. So the Waller decision will decide a bit of that. Mate, I've got to go, but can I leave you with the Canterbury Stakes? Zaki, obviously in Melbourne now. What are you thinking?
Look, a very tricky race, especially on the heavy 10. It's wide open. Forbidden Love, she really loves the wet tracks. She got it last week in the Guy Walter and just absolutely bolted in. So I think she is a deserved favourite. Laws of Indices was very impressive first up. It was impressive in the Golden Eagle, only beaten 2.5 lengths. And then, he ran the quickest last 600 of the day first up in the Southern Cross. So, I think he's a genuine Group 1 horse for Annabelle Neesham, and I think they're the two exciting ones to watch. But when you've got Private Eye and Delasan and Wild Planet, it's a good strong Group 1 field, and I do think there's a few chances, and it's a bit of a tricky betting race, really.
Forbidden Love currently $3. Law of Indices at $5.50 and Private Eyes at $5.50 with Law of Indices. Lighthouse there with James McDonald now taking the ride with Zaki being scratched. It's currently at $4.20. Dean, lots of information. People can go to winningedgeinvestments.com. It's tips, it's ratings from professional punters throughout the Autumn Racing Carnival. Gamble responsibly, 1-800-858-858. But make sure you check it out, winningedgeinvestments.com. Thanks a lot, Dean.
Thanks, Andrew. Enjoy Saturday and stay safe, everyone.
Yeah, that's the key. Dean